How do you explain intuition to somebody who doesn't know what intuition is? The word intuition gets thrown around a lot, and a lot of people think it means like being psychic or having a sixth sense or something like that. And that's not what it is at all, at least outside of, movies and TV. So, what does it actually feel like to be intuitive, and how do you explain it to someone who's not intuitive? This is something I've been struggling with and trying to explain to a friend of mine. So here's what I got. Stick with me, this analogy, because understanding this is actually going to really help you understand intuition. Let's say you find yourself plunked down in the middle of the wilderness. You have no idea where you are, but you do have a map. You look around and you go, okay, there's a mountain over there. That's that mountain on the map. So I know I'm on the right map. I got an idea. And then, okay, there's a river over there. And there's a river on my map. And, okay, there's a boulder over there. And that boulder's on the map. So now I know exactly where I am on that map. Now I've got an idea of exactly where I am on that map. And I know how to navigate now. Okay, and you've done that by having a map of the territory, your knowledge. That's how most people get around in life. We have a mental map of the world around us. And we have landmarks, things we recognize that help us orient within that map. But there are other ways of navigating around the physical world that were used by Native Americans and islanders in the Pacific, specifically the Marshall Islands. I'm going to talk about those. The people who lived on these groups of islands were able to navigate from one island to the other without the aids of compasses or the stars, longitude, latitude, any of that stuff. They did it because they understood the waves. One of the ways they do it is actually lay down in the boat and close their eyes and just feel the motion of the waves on the boat and through their body. And that sensation would tell them the direction they're coming from, how strong those waves are. And based on understanding those patterns, they were able to tell the direction to which shore was, land was. And they can't see it, but they begin to interpret the waves. And they go, okay, there's more land that way. So then they go that way. Now, we take that concept and apply it to Native American trackers who used to help settlers and colonists. Imagine yourself in an empty room and you drop a pencil and it has this sound, the sounds reverberate off the walls and come back and have a particular sound. Now take that same room and cover the walls with curtains and tapestries and put rugs on the floor and drop the pencil, and it makes a very different sound. Native Americans could go through the woods in the area that they were familiar with and listen to the sounds that were coming from around them. And based on the quality of that sound, they knew where they were in the forest. So they knew the sound, how sounds changed from one area to another. When you think about these different ways of orienting yourself, we tend to just use the visual way. But if you can incorporate the sounds and the physicality of the waves into a way of orienting yourself in the world, you now have a much broader toolkit to orient yourself in the world. So what does this have to do with intuition? When you meet somebody new, most people will begin to ask questions. What do you do for a living? What's your favorite genre of music? What's your favorite movie? Who's your favorite comedian? This is the landmarks on the map. You begin to orient yourself to this person. You begin to know this person better. And from those bits of information you're collecting, you can infer other stuff until they become someone you know really well. And then you just intuit the way you talk to them, the kind of conversations you like to have. If you want to talk about sports and this person doesn't care about sports, they're not the person you're going to talk to about last night's game. So you orient yourself based on what you know about them. And that's how most people do it. That's how they get to know people. But to be intuitive means that you are actually using your other senses. Every experience you've had in life from birth up till now leaves an impact on you. Where you grew up impacts the way you speak, your accent, your dialect, the choice of words you use, pacing of your speech. When you meet somebody from Boston, as soon as they start talking, even if they don't tell you they're from Boston, you can probably figure out they're from Boston. Versus somebody who's from Bangladesh. That's one way in which you begin to understand things about people, not based on direct knowledge of their history, what they've told you, but by understanding the signs of what their history has left on their person. And these types of signs go much deeper than speech. They go in the way you dress, choice of hairstyles, the way somebody does their makeup, the way they move, or maybe they walk a certain way because they injured themselves and now they have a limp. And that's part of their history that you can observe. Mannerisms, the way they move their hands, the way they gesture or don't gesture, very stiff body language. So all of these are the same kind of signs and signals that you can use to orient yourself if you understand how to do it. The same way somebody from the Marshall Islands could navigate waves by how they felt. That's kind of what intuition is you're using your other senses and your other observations that are coming into you to recognize these patterns. And these patterns in people tell you a lot about them. When somebody's intuitive, they recognize an enormous amount of information about a person and orient themselves to that person very quickly without having direct knowledge. And also they orient themselves to social situations, can orient themselves to the different people and also to the interaction between those people. And they can take in all this information and they can very easily and very quickly understand a lot of what's going on. And that's really what it means to be intuitive. And people who are very good at this, it does seem kind of spooky. It can appear psychic. They almost don't realize how they do it. They can't necessarily explain it. They just know. For a lot of people, I just know. Like I can't point to why. I just know. And one of the ways I notice this presenting itself is when I have conversations with new people, they do tend to ask me these questions about what do you do for a living? Where are you from? Blah, 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 all these things, because they're uncovering it. And to me, in my mind, I'm thinking, what does that have to do with anything? That doesn't matter. Why does it matter where I grew up? But the reason it seems to me that this is inconsequential is because they're trying to understand things about me that I already understand about them, whether I can put them in words or not. So they're just trying to orient themselves with a less robust toolbox. Now, I don't know whether intuition is like a genetic predisposition or simply skills that some of us learn very early and others can learn later. I do know like you can learn to be better at intuiting things by observing people, by paying attention to body language, by paying attention to speech patterns. You can definitely develop that skill. I don't know whether the people who are naturally good at it just learned it earlier or it's genetic predisposition like being tall or having a particular eye color or anything like that. I don't know. The fact is that as adults, some of us are just better at it than others. But there's a flaw in depending too much on intuition. Let's say you come across somebody who's exhibiting signs of trauma, disconnected with their body, they're very cut off emotionally, maybe hyperreactive to certain stimulus and non-reactive to others. But you don't know what that trauma was. Maybe there was an auto accident. Maybe they were assaulted. Maybe they saw combat. Maybe they were abused as a child. You have no idea what the context of that trauma is without getting that history from them. So you don't know what's going to trigger them, what's going to set them off. You just know that there's a trauma there and there's a potential for them to be set off. And you also don't know what that set off is going to look like. They could be somebody who completely shuts down, or they could be someone who gets violent. And this is where being intuitive and recognizing somebody who exhibits a sign of trauma can be useful because you know to be cautious. But if you depend too much on your intuition and you misjudge what the results of setting them off or triggering their trauma could be, you could cause them more trauma and you could cause a very bad situation. As intuitive, you understand certain things about people very quickly, very easily upon meeting them, but you don't have the historical context. So it still is useful to get to know them, but you can get to know them in a more roundabout way that doesn't feel like such an interrogation. So if I'm having a conversation with somebody, I talk about something and that brings up an idea in their mind and they share their idea. As they share their idea, I'm gathering more information, the little bits of their history and their thought process that they're sharing. Again, being intuitive gives me just more tools to dissect that with and understand it with. But that's basically what it means to be intuitive. It isn't a sixth sense. It isn't a psychic ability. It doesn't mean, you know things other people don't. It just means you're able to read situations more quickly because you're using a greater set of tools in order to do that. You're able to navigate life and social interactions and relationships with a more advanced tool set. This includes empathy, emotional intelligence, understanding of body language, micro expressions, patterns in human behavior, all these things. You just collect all this information and then you just use it to interpret what's going on around you, the same as you would orient yourself to a new environment by looking at a map. That's what it means to be intuitive in a nutshell. And I hope that helps somebody out there who doesn't really understand what intuition is. And I hope maybe some of you out there realize now that you are intuitive, and this maybe explains some of the behaviors that seem weird to you that other people exhibit, maybe some of your behaviors that other people find weird. But it's all just natural. It's all just part of who we all are, and it's part of the natural variety of life. Embrace it, use it, do not depend on it exclusively, understand its flaws. Every tool is useful for certain things and not useful for other things. So use the right tool for the job, okay? I really hope you found this useful. If you did, please give me a like and subscribe. I'm trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. That's a personal goal. It's pretty low for a YouTube channel, but for me, it's a big deal. So that would help me out a lot. And if you really like this kind of content, I encourage you to become a member. That helps me produce more videos like this. It gives you direct access to me to help have that conversation about what kind of content you would like to see. It's more of a conversation and a dialogue than just a thumbs up from the like and subscribe. And also, if you really, really want to go to the next level and are an intuitive, an introvert, an empath who really wants to make a difference in the world and become the best version of yourself so that you can do that, there's a link down below that you can click to apply for personal one-on-one coaching with me. So I hope this has been helpful. And right now, YouTube should be showing you another video that I hope you'll enjoy. Click on that one and I'll see you there.